being your authentic self will never ruin a relationship that you were meant to be in. And I don't just mean romantic relationships. I don't just mean platonic friendships. I mean your actual relationship with reality. Because the sort of expression that we're putting forward on the stage of life, in the game of life, is so drastically important to the sort of alignment that we're going to fall into. It's going to affect the way we talk to people. It's going to affect the way we make our choices. And what holds people back, I believe, from that authentic expression that could sort of bring us the things that we want is a fear that that authentic expression will not be accepted for what it is. And then there's another layer of fear that cuts even deeper into the unconscious, and that is, what do we fear as a result of even that authentic expression being improperly received? We fear maybe being alone. And here's a sort of interesting piece of advice and guidance that I've reflected upon that I don't think a lot of people mention. Maybe instead of constantly hyper analyzing and self analyzing ourselves, maybe actually we can teach our mind about the person that we are as a result of our relationship with reality. So maybe we don't need to force authentic expression, but rather we need to more authentically change the relationship we have with life. So we need to adjust our choices rather than just our personality. Of course, changing our personality is incredibly important, but that can feel a bit awkward. It can feel a bit tense at first. I also, of course, recommend doing that. That is a very efficient method. But alongside, and even beginning with, we can actually make choices in an authentic way first. So here's kind of how it works. What we're fearing from being our authentic self is being isolated, most likely. We fear being alone. We fear not having people who appreciate our authentic self for what it really is. What about we practice doing some things alone, going out of our comfort zone, treating ourselves to a meal alone, going to a place that we always wanted to go alone? Maybe as a result of breaking the dependency and need for other people for us to do the things that we want, we will now feel confident in being the person we want. Does that make sense? So in a way, you're now showing your brain it doesn't matter as much the reaction of the people around us, but rather what matters more is the reaction of reality. And what you're going to find is the reaction of reality is a mirror. So when you do those things alone, when you go out and treat yourself to a meal alone, when you go to the beach alone because you wanted to, you actually start to show your mind that I am confident in being myself, even if you don't yet believe that. That is what that action signals. That action signals a sort of break in dependency for other people in order for you to live your life. And this is all related. You care so much what that person thinks because you hang so much weight on the attachment of that friendship. But we need to start treating all attachments, whether it be to people, whether it be to events, whether it be to circumstances and environments, we need to start treating all attachments much more gently and much more forgivingly with space. Because when we create space from attachment, we allow whatever is there to either flourish or fall. And that's okay. We need to have a trust in ourselves. We need to have a trust in our authentic expression that those who are aligned with us will find us as a result of us coming into our very own being, into our highest alignment. The opposite of that is a distrust. And this is where this is where many people are finding comfort and are finding their day-to-day lives. They are depending their value, they are depending their happiness on the pure circumstances of those around them and the circumstances around them. And we can't be negligent and say that these things don't play a part, but how much of a part are we allowing them to play? Because I don't think that needs to be 100%. Life is uncertain, and we have to realize that that friendship falling apart, that relationship falling apart, though it might not be something that we want, it might be something that happens. Maybe not, maybe so. Maybe the deeper the connection, the more unlikely. But either way, everyone is free to choose, and we can't depend ourselves on circumstances that are out of our control. When we depend our state of being on the things that we can control, that's how we actually become the influencer of our reality. Because reality is a mirror to the state of being that we are occupying. And I don't mean this in simply a woo-woo way, even though it can be interpreted in a sort of spiritual, metaphysical way, but I'm also interpreting it from the very nature of the emotional state we're making choices from. Because that has a real effect. When you choose to go to the beach alone, when you choose to treat yourself to a meal alone, there's so many things happening at a sort of core level. Even if you feel weird, even if you feel awkward and out of your shell, you feel out of place. Why don't we switch the tempo just a little bit? When you're alone, there's no one to impress. When you're eating a meal, you don't have to order anything impressionable off the menu. You don't have to make chat. You can enjoy doing things alone for what it is. It doesn't have to be your whole life. Not everything needs to be done alone. We're not abandoning all relationships in seek of a completely lonely lifestyle. But we can accept and we can appreciate that there are some things that can be done alone. Many things can be done alone. And when we're not afraid to do that alone, it gives more value to the things we do with others because we're not depending on others to do things with, but rather we're bringing our energy, we're bringing our authentic expression into a collaborative experience with those people. And this will breed more enjoyment for them as well because we are present and we're just enjoying that. And we know that in the future, if we have to do something alone, we can enjoy that as well. So we're now shifting our mindset from a place of constantly depending on circumstances and people to sort of check the boxes of our anxious attachments. And we're just moving into enjoyment, presence, and space. We're allowing space of other people, we're allowing space of our expectations, and we're allowing space of circumstances. And most of all, we're not being afraid to be alone. Because in not being afraid to be alone, it allows your authentic expression to sort of be portrayed in a more grand way. And here's another challenge. Ask yourself, what do you find more challenging? Being your authentic self in front of strangers, or being your authentic self in front of those who know you as a version of yourself that has been sort of stringed along for a long time? And there's no right answer. For me personally, just to give you a personal example so, it doesn't feel like there is a right choice to make. I feel as though it is easier to be the authentic expression of myself in the eyes of those who already know me as any version of me. Because from my natural unfolding, it feels as though I can shift that perception quite easily. But I also see the very dramatic value in being your authentic self with strangers because that either forms a right away authentic connection or a right away denial of that. And, they're not meant to be in your life or that circumstance isn't meant to be in your life, whatever it may be. So someone in my shoes maybe would have to work the other way in holding your authentic expression when met with people who don't know who you really are. And in this way, we open ourselves to new circumstances and new opportunities. Because when we're always embodying our authentic expression, there's never anything we have to put on. Because you know that feeling sometimes when you come home and you feel as though there's a weight on your shoulders you just have to let go of? You basically say, I'm tired of playing the game. I'm tired of playing the character. And even though you're not playing a fake character, you're playing you. And so maybe you lay in your bed in silence and go on TikTok, Instagram, scroll on YouTube, whatever it may be, and you sort of just numb and lose yourself into that sort of thing. You take it off. You take the costume off. And this is okay. But I think we need to come to a place where being ourselves takes less effort. And that's an interesting thing. Because we also may associate authentic expression with a sort of very performative, extroverted state of being, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it's being more reserved, being more quiet, being more calm. And then sometimes it is being the sort of spokesperson of the room, of the group, whatever it may be. Authentic expression isn't a personality archetype. Rather, it's void of all the defense mechanisms that we've created as a result of protecting ourselves from having our feelings hurt and from having our anxiety and fears triggered. That's what it is. We're not coming in to being a different person. We're coming into being us without all the theatrics, with all the dramatic value attached to what it means to being us. And what does this come back to again? It comes back to that same avoidance of anxiety and discomfort from which I speak about in many episodes. I'm not going to go on a tangent about it now, but if we're not willing to sit with the discomfort of other people judging us, possibly other people perceiving us, we're never going to be able to be in our authentic expression because we're always afraid of what other people are going to think of that authentic expression. There's no reason to not be authentic because those relationships that were going to fall apart, they would have fallen apart anyway, whether 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. They would have fell apart anyway because eventually we will come to a state of mind where we can't take putting on the persona anymore. We can't take being a version of ourselves that doesn't encapsulate our most authentic expression. And the same thing goes with the circumstances of our life, a certain job, a certain school, a certain hobby. Things come and go. And sometimes we see that even people and circumstances and situations, whatever it may be, whatever experience may be in any sort of attachment, serves its role for a temporary amount of time. And maybe you serve that role in a temporary amount of time for someone else's life too. We can't look at things so subjectively. We see that the way that emotional states sort of fluctuate in the human mind and the human nervous system is relatively the same. There are sort of biological facts that we can use, and we can sort of relate that to our psychological and mental health. Of course, the spiritual health is more intuitive, but why not use what we know to create space for conscious exploration and authentic expression? I know that's a little bit of a loaded sentence, but why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we regulate our nervous system? Why wouldn't we train our minds to experience less anxiety in the practice of creating more room for understanding who we are? It might be hard to understand who we are when we're constantly flooded with thoughts and emotions. So that sort of mindfulness, that awareness that comes about might have to happen first. It depends where you are. If right now you're at the place where you don't really have room for that authenticity because you're so clouded with thoughts and difficult emotions, negative thoughts and difficult emotions, then maybe the answer right now isn't finding out who you are, it's finding out who you're not. And that's equally important. Because when we believe that our negative thoughts are our identity, sorry, and they are a reflection of who we are, then of course things are going to get murky. The water is going to get very muddy because you're always going to be one thought away from your entire character being completely broken into pieces. I mean, that's the root of ego death. If you still are attached to your thoughts, if you still believe you are your thoughts, then you're always one thought away from your entire character as you know it, your entire persona in the game of life being completely shattered. You may think, oh man, am I a bad person? Do I really think this? Am I really like that? And the answer is no. But that perspective can overcome your life if you believe those thoughts. And the same thing goes with emotions. Am I a sad person? Am I an angry person? Am I a resentful person? The answer is no. But if you allow those belief systems that you are every emotion that encounters your awareness, you're going to get lost in that perspective. Being who we are, being authentic, and existing in what a lot of people call the frequency of authenticity, it's quite effortless. It doesn't require too much from us from a sort of reflective analytical standpoint. Anything that does require that analysis, that reflection, is only a result of getting us into that sort of flow state of authentic expression. It's just living. And oftentimes, what we will find is we are still required to take certain inconveniences and overcome certain difficulties among the process and amidst the process of finding out who we are. So, this is what I mean. There's a state of being that we're looking for in that authentic expression. We want to be ourselves no matter where we are in front of any crowd. We want to be present in that state of being, and we want to express that state of being. Sometimes life will sort of offer us a pathway, and we will think, I want to skip all this mess, and I just want to get to the state of being. I just want to in a way, I want to stay in my room, not talk to anyone for a little bit, and cultivate that authentic state of being. But what we will find is it's actually the direct opposite. We need to actually go through certain discomforts. We actually need to overcome certain difficulties and inconveniences as a result of understanding who we are for when that time comes. Because think about it. If you can't stay in the present moment, how are you supposed to sustain your authentic expression in the present moment? If you can't let your thoughts pass by you, how are you supposed to be yourself when you're caught up on every thought that passes your awareness? If you can't regulate your nervous system and allow anxiety to pass over you instead of always holding on to it so tightly, how are you supposed to be your authentic expression when you're always anxious? So there are certain things, there are hurdles, even amidst the presence and flow and surrender to just being who we are. So trust in the process and in the unfolding of your highest state of being. Because when the purpose is your inner state, everything in the outer world starts to reveal itself in a very beautiful and interesting way. They start to reveal themselves in a sort of weird relationship to who you are becoming. People start to either fall away or they start to come like much closer and much more intimate to this new state of being. And you have to allow that process. Because if the authentic expression of yourself, the highest alignment of you, that flow state, that state of being you've been looking for, what if that looks completely different in a different environment and amidst different people you would have never expected? You would be willing to experience that, but maybe you don't think that you would be willing to experience it right now. But those events that are leading up to you experiencing that are going to bring you that desire and bring you that satisfaction in that sort of reality. Does that make sense? So our authentic expression, even right now, may feel foreign, may feel scary, but we have to trust that the process of overcoming our anxieties, the process of overcoming our fears and being ourselves amidst all the judgments of those around us is going to bring us the truth and bring us towards the satisfaction of who we really are. Even if that satisfaction and that way that we're living in reality feels so weird, different, and sort of not desirable right now. So don't be afraid to do things alone. Doing things alone empowers you and it builds your confidence in a way that is much more unshakable compared to the confidence you have when you're in a group of people. And then bring that confidence that you have in your solitude, in doing things alone, and bring it into groups with you because now you don't need anything from group activities. You don't need anything from most relationships. All you need and all you're wanting is just the enjoyment of the present moment. And whenever we find ourselves enjoying the present moment, in any case, whether it be in relationships, whether it be playing a sport, whether it be swimming, whether it be dancing, singing, writing, whatever it may be, I would say 99% of the time, we're probably right where we need to be. Because when we're in the present moment, we're in reality. And even if the path is murky, even if the water's muddy, even if you can't really tell which way is going to be the way forward, if you're living in the present moment, you could be assured that reality is there with you. The universe is present with you. But when you're always sulking, when you're always in your head, you're always arguing with your thoughts, you're always imagining, you're only with yourself. In the experiences of life, bad or good, surprising or mundane, you can be assured that those experiences will shape you into becoming the person that you need to be and that you want to be. Especially when you're making choices with the intention, especially when you're opening doors with the intention of exploring new opportunities and opening yourself to new things that you would never have imagined yourself to be capable of creating. To recap, very simply, our fears are often an indication of what we actually need to do. So our fear of not being accepted for our authentic self is often an invitation to being our authentic self any and everywhere. And that whatever falls apart as a result of being our authentic self would have fallen apart either way, so it may as well happen now. That's the way we can look at it. I am racing and I am trailblazing towards my highest alignment, to my highest future, my highest timeline, and whatever falls apart as a result of that becoming into being is what it is. Would you rather hold on to what once was and sort of live in delusion, live in the nostalgia, rather than live in the unknown and possibly uncomfortable future of becoming who you absolutely always wanted and coming into the life that you always wanted? And that's the inner trade-off that we have to make. Are we willing to face discomfort over and over and over again as a result of becoming who we want to be? And the answer should be yes. And whatever stands in the way of that answer, whatever what ifs and what abouts come into the picture, come into your awareness, those are just more thoughts. Let the truth echo in your body, feel it, and let those thoughts pass. And being your authentic self is the most rewarding way to live your life. That's it for today's video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe as always. If you're listening on Spotify, thank you for listening. I have a book coming out soon Probably in about a week or so, I'll release it, but until then, I'll keep you guys updated, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.